Hello, and welcome to Chapter Book Storytime. I'm Ellen from EVPL Oakland Branch Library, and today I have another award winner for you, the 2024 winner of the Newbery Award. It's called 𝑇ℒe 𝐸𝑦𝑒𝑠 𝑎𝑛𝑑 by Dave Eggers. Dave Eggers has written books for adults and children, both fiction and nonfiction, and this one is the winner for 2024, and I'm excited to share it with you. Before we get started, the author has a note that he wants you to read. This is a work of fiction. No places are real places, no animals are real animals, and most crucially, no animals symbolize people. It's a tendency of the human species to see themselves in everything, to assume all living things, animals in particular, are simply corollaries to humans. But in this book, that is not the case. Here, the dogs are dogs, the birds are birds, goats are goats, and the bison, bison. Another note I'd like to add. There is a joke in a young adult book by Gordon Corman called No More Dead Dogs, in which one of the characters says, if you see a book with an award sticker on the front and a picture of a dog, that dog is going down. Well, I'm happy to tell you that is not the case. No dogs die in this book. So that's the one spoiler I'm going to give you. I don't usually give hints as to what happens at the end. But in case you were hesitant to read a book with an award sticker and a dog on the cover, feel free to read it. 𝑇ℒe 𝐸𝑦𝑒𝑠 𝑎𝑛𝑑, Chapter 1. I turn, I turn, I turn before I lie to sleep, and I rise before the sun. I sleep inside and sleep outside, and have slept in the hollow of a 1,000-year-old tree. When I sleep, I need warmth, I need quiet, I need freedom from sound. When I sleep, I dream of mothers and clouds. Clouds are messengers of God. And I dream of pupusas, for I love pupusas, and I eat them with gusto. I am a dog called Johannes, and I have seen you. I have seen you in this park, my home. If you have come to this park, my vast green and windblown park by the sea, I have seen you. I have seen everyone who has been here, the walkers and runners and bikers and horse riders and the bison seekers and the picnickers and the archers in their cloaks. When you have come here, you have come to my home, where I am the 𝑇ℒe. I've seen all of you here, the big and small and tall and odorous, the travelers and tourists and locals and roller skating humans, and those who play their brass under the mossy bridge, and the jitterbug people who dance over that other bridge, and bearded humans who try to send flying discs into cages, but usually fail. I see all in this park because I am the 𝑇ℒe and have been entrusted with seeing and reporting all. Ask the turtles about me. Ask the squirrels. Don't ask the ducks. The ducks know nothing. I run like a rocket. I run like a laser. You have never seen speed like mine. When I run, I pull at the earth and make it turn. Have you seen me? You've not seen me. Not possible. You are mistaken. No one has seen me running because when I run, human eyes are blind to me. I run like light. You have not seen the movement of light, but still I like you. You did not expect this or deserve this, but I do. I like you. I was born here. It's a story. My mother was house-kept and still is, but when she was pregnant, she came here to a hollow in a tree and waited for us to be born. I don't know, and she doesn't know why she chose to have us in the woods rather than in the safety of her human home. For she lived then in a human home, and she has a tag and is fed daily, and petted always and cared for by human doctors who have kept her alive so long, so much longer than she would have lived out here. Why she had us out here, I don't know, but she did. And when we all came out of her oily and whimpering, she did an unexpected thing. She picked up one of us and brought that one, Leonard, my brother, to her human lair, and apparently her humans were thrilled to have her back home and delighted with her new son. The rest of us she left in the hollow of that tree. I'm not bitter. I am a comet. I have a vague recollection of another dog feeding us pups in those early days. I have cloudy memories of that dog's smell. But was it a dog? Or was it a fox? Or a raccoon? Janie says it was an owl. Joni says it was a squirrel. Those are my sisters, Joni and Janie. There's also my brother Stephen. Someone fed us for those crucial first days, and it was only a few weeks before we could fend for ourselves. And we did. We fended and we grew and we were good. Leonard was being fed from a kibble bag while we scrounged for what we could in the park. We were hungry, but we were free. I still fend, and I still scrounge, and am still free. Have always been free. No one feeds me. I am unkept and free. This is my life. God is the sun. Clouds are her messengers. Rain is only rain. This park is enormous. I'm not a math expert, but I believe it is 10,000 miles along its length and about 3,000 along its width. It is long and narrow, and it leads from the gray city all the way to a rough gray patch of angry ocean that meets the vast windy beach where people drown 3 or 4 times a year in the sinewy muscles of the savage sea. I have been to this beach and have not drowned. I have crossed roads and highways, and I remain unharmed. I have bitten a leg or two when necessary, and I have leapt from a rooftop and came away fine. I am strong. I stared straight into a solar eclipse, and nothing happened. I cannot be defeated. Maybe I'll never die. In those early days, Joni and Janie and Stephen and I found the garbage near the snack vendors, and we ate heartily from said garbage. It was so easy, and we ate well. We ate half-eaten hot dogs and parts of pretzels and drank incomplete juices and sodas and spit out the sodas, for they were offensive to us then and still are now. There was so much food here, so much that it was, and still is, so easy to eat often and well. Then Joni and Janie and Stephen disappeared. And it was strange how it happened. We were still puppies. I know that now. We were all puppies and were watching the humans dancing near the bridge one day, just the 4 of us sitting and watching the band and the dancing, when suddenly human hands lifted them, Joni and Stephen, saying things about how they were puppies and so small and so fuzzy, and I thought, no, and told Janie, run, but she thought, yes, and said yes, and stayed, and she was lifted up too. So they were taken by humans, and I assume they became kept dogs, pets. And I ran into the woods where I remained free and became the eyes. Chapter 2. How I became the eyes. Yes, it is a story. One day as I ran like light through the park, I heard a rumbling voice. Stop, it said. I would never think of stopping for anyone, for I am free and fast. But this voice was commanding and kind, a motherly sort of voice. So I did not stop. No, I did not stop just like that. How could I? But I slowed to the speed of sound. Come here, please, the voice said. And I slowed to the speed of an airplane and came closer to the voice, which seemed to be coming from a fur-covered boulder. The boulder was speaking to me through the woods. Come closer, the voice asked, and I slowed to regular mortal mammal at top speed and came closer and saw that the boulder was a living thing, a bison. I had seen the bison from far away, from the road that cuts through the park and along which I sometimes run because I like to race the cars. Oh, Lord, I am so much faster. It's just a cruel joke how much faster I am. It's embarrassing to cars and the humans that drive them and the humans that make them. I render them silly, but I'm not sorry. Come here and talk to me, the voice said. And when I did so, I could see this bison up close, and I could see that she was very old. This was Freya. I'm not a scientist of time, but I estimate she was 6,000 years old. She's now older still. She was one of 3 bison. The other 2 are Meredith and Samuel, who live in a large fenced-in park within the park. They have always been there, and they are slow-moving and often tired, it seems. But they have ruled the park for millions of years or more. "I have seen you run," Freya said to me, her eyes huge and heavy-lidded. "You are very fast." And I nodded seriously, pridefully. We, the rulers of this park, need to know what happens within it. And most of the rabbits are gone now, and the owls are unreliable. "They make up things, and they have their own agenda," Meredith said, not unkindly. Meredith was the warmest of the 3, the first to believe, the first to encourage. "And of course the ducks are morons," Samuel said. He was the most cynical, the most tired, the most funny. I knew the rabbits had disappeared, but did not know this about the owls, about their unreliability. I made a mental note to remember that the owls have their own agendas. The ducks, though, I already knew they were morons. "We would like you to be our eyes," Freya said. "You would be good," Meredith said. I wanted to be their eyes, so I became the eyes. "Don't screw it up," Samuel said. And so it was. My task was simple but crucial. I would run the park daily as I already did, but now, after sunset each day, I would report to the bison what I had seen. Was there anything new, the bison wanted to know? Was there anything troubling? Was there anything that they needed to know about what might upset the equilibrium? The park has an equilibrium, as all natural places do, and the bison watch it and protect it. They are the keepers of the equilibrium. If the equilibrium is upset, there are problems. If the park's people cut a new path across the width of the park, that means that more people will come where the animals had been alone and undisturbed, and that might upset the balance. If there are new buildings, that upsets the equilibrium. New roads, new rules, all affect the equilibrium. The system, our system, is a good one. I see something, I tell the bison. They conjure a solution. When there was a new road cutting through the forest where most of the raccoons live, I told the bison, and they decided where and when the raccoons needed to relocate. When the foxes and the squirrels have disagreements over territory, I report this to the bison, and they decide who gets what. When a mass of humans is being too destructive and disrespectful of the land, I tell the bison, and they direct Bertrand and his birds to drop truly uncomfortable amounts of feces on these humans. Problem solved. And it all starts with what I see, the news I gather. Most of my news is about the humans. They run and roller skate and picnic and generally do what they should do in parks. They play croquet, they climb trees, bikes are ridden and paths are walked. Such people are not a problem. But then there are the people who are a problem. They are the concerteers and the campers, both of whom can be problems. The concerteers come once a year, and when they do, they play deafening music in the grass in the oval, and this is a problem. The concerteers come from near and far, and generally have not been to our park before, and they have no idea where they are, or that it is a place in and of itself, a place inhabited by thousands of permanent residents like myself, and not simply a stage for their standing and nodding and twirling. The concerteers nearly ruin the park once a year with their noise and garbage and vomit and indiscriminate urination. But they leave, and we can recover. The campers are complicated. Some stay and have stayed for years, and we know them by name, and some of them are not at all a problem. Marianne and Dennis sleep in a tidy tent near the duck pond and have been there as long as I have. Thomas, near blind, feeds birds and squirrels and lives by the sea. He's been here for what some say is 1,000 years. All of these campers are like us. They live quietly, and they walk gently, gently, gently in the woods. They respect the equilibrium. But then there are the trouble travelers. These humans are not so good. They eat and drink smelly things and are sick and loud. They fight and they steal. They leave bottles and papers and other things. They attack strangers and mistreat animals. They make the woods perilous and they make them smell. Usually they travel through the big park in loud vehicles. They are passing through on their way from and to other places. They do not care about our home. Most humans, though, pass through and are fine. I know this is their park as much as it is mine. The bison understand this. The turtles and the squirrels understand this. The ducks understand nothing. But that's another thing entirely. Most humans live in their pale concrete homes on their gray asphalt streets and come through for an hour or two, and I watch them. I watch the runners and horse riders and the archers. I watch the soccer players and the soccer watchers. I watch the families and their children suddenly let loose. I watch the dog walkers and laugh at the kept dogs. Ha ha hoo! That's how I laugh. Ha ha hoo! Ha ha hoo! Pets. These kept dogs on their leashes, they pretend I am laughing with them and not at them, and that makes me laugh harder. Ha ha hoo! Ha ha hoo! Delightful. 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 I laugh at how they are kept and how they pretend to be free like me. They act casual with me, like the leash is no problem, like they would just as soon be free like me, like they could be free if they wanted. But that is a joke, and I laugh with great fervor. Ha ha hoo! I laugh so much I cry, and I cry and cry enormous tears of limitless mirth. Not free is not free. These kept dogs know the difference and have chosen the kibble in a bag. They have chosen the under-table leftovers. They have chosen the roof overhead and the leash. The leash! The leash! The leash! Ha ha hoo, I say, for I am a different breed. Chapter 3. I want to tell you when my days changed. It was not long ago. I would estimate it to be about 200 years ago. It came after a night of 1,000,000,000 stars, siblings to our sun. I live in the hollow of a 1,000,000-year-old tree that died 1,000 years ago but still stands in the middle of the park, wrapped in ivy. So this day, after the night of so many sun siblings, I woke in my hollow before dawn and stretched and shook. I ran like light to the ocean to wash off and to wake myself in the bone-splitting cold of the frothy shore. On the windy sand, I saw a few jogging people and some mindless jellyfish, clear and round and glistening, who had beached themselves, and saw the waking sky going from black to blue, to violet, to pink, to orange, to yellow, and then I went back to the park, clean and awake. There was nothing happening this day. I crossed the highway like a colossus and passed the sleeping windmill and then went about my rounds. I passed the duck's lake, which smells very bad, and there were the ducks as usual, who did not mind the smell, because they're ducks. I crossed over to check out what human archers were doing. There were only a few so early. One was wearing a heavy yellow cloak that tickled the grass as she walked. It looked so dramatic, the sweep of yellow against the dewy green of the archery field. Next to the archery grass, there was the soccer complex, and that was full of young players and their parents. I stayed to watch for a bit, but strangely, they played no soccer. They ran in place and jumped and sat and turned themselves in strange positions and did much cavorting and chanting, and I grew weary and left. In the equestrian circle, the people sat atop horses like kings and queens as the horses trotted inconsequentially in little circles, and I got bored with that too. "Are you coming or what?" the voice said. The voice was above me, so I figured it was Bertrand, a gull and my closest friend. It was time to meet the assistant eyes in the top of the great round rock. I did not mention the assistant eyes. I should have. They are my helpers. They help me see what I cannot see. We are comrades, allies. We meet each day when the sun is straight above us in a large rock in the park, a rock so round and high that it cannot be climbed by humans, for there is nowhere to grab onto with opposable thumbs. On top of the rock there is a concavity, like a bowl. That's where we meet. When we are there, we have a commanding view of the park. But because of its unusual shape, no one below, no one anywhere, no one but birds above can see us. I can make my way up quickly, like a feather lifted by wind, because my speed is like flight, and my claw like promises kept. When I got there, Bertrand was already perched, scratching his armpit with his beak, which is something he does. I don't ask why. Bertrand is a seagull, a large one. I believe he is the grandest and strongest of all the gulls, but he is humble and has never accepted this designation. Strongest, grandest. He wants only to be Bertrand. "Hi, hi," he says. This is how he greets everyone. It sounds silly and delicate even, given his deep voice and barrel chest and enormous wings. "Ho, ho," I say, which is something I say back to Bertrand. It's our thing. I asked him what was new, and he said nothing much was new, but that Rose-Marie, one of the gulls of his clan, had done her final flight the day before. This was not unexpected, for she was old and could not fly well anymore. And when you are a gull who is old and cannot fly, that is that. It is a cultural thing among them that I won't go into here, but when it is their time, they go out in a way they consider spectacular. I knew Rose-Marie had been good to Bertrand, and I offered my condolences. "She taught me how to fish," he said, looking out to sea. "She gave me a fish once, too," I said. It had been rare in my life to eat raw fish from the sea, but occasionally a gull will share, if only to see what a dog like me thinks of raw fish. Silver and flapping, eyes desperate, this was how this fish was given to me. It was a wretched experience I will not duplicate. "She will be missed," Bertrand said of Rose-Marie. Of all the mammals and birds I know, it's Bertrand who is most inclined to say serious things while looking at the sea. And we allow it. We value its gravitas. He is often sought for guidance. Sonia arrived. Sonia is a squirrel. She has a habit of showing up without saying hello, as if she's barged in on a private meeting. She's been one of the assistants, coming to meet us on our rock for probably 600 years. So we cannot understand this, the way she persists with this initial shyness. She's missing an eye. And the easy answer would be that this missing eye, lost in a fight with a crow, has caused her reticence. But I'm not sure. The obvious reasons are so often wrong. "Hi, hi," Bertrand said. "Very high," she said. This is what she always says when Bertrand says, "Hi, hi." This is their thing. Seeing that we were still missing 2 members of the assistant eyes, Sonia raised her small face to the sun, something she does up here on those rare sunny days. Sonia lives much of the time under the trees, in the shade of the pines and eucalyptus, so when she comes up here she aims her face to the sun, and in this way listens to God. With her good eye closed, she looks so peaceful. When her one eye is open, the other a cinched star of fur and tissue, she looks conflicted, tense, unsure. Yolanda landed with her usual chaos clatter of wings and feet. Yolanda is a pelican, and a clumsy one, which is saying something, given all pelicans are clumsy, ungainly, unlikely in their shape, and ludicrous in their flight. "Hi, hi," Bertrand says. "Low, low," Yolanda said. This is what she says when Bertrand says, "Hi, hi." It is their thing. She, like all pelicans, prefers to fly low, low over the water, inches above the surface, so this is a bit of an in-joke between her and Bertrand, they being creatures that fly. Yolanda also happens to be the only one among us who can read human written language, a gift she wears lightly. Yolanda flapped her wings a bit and shook her neck, ridding herself of a bit of ocean water and a few stray feathers, and then settled down. "Where's Angus?" she asked. Angus is a raccoon, and raccoons are nocturnal, so Angus is usually late to our meetings and sometimes does not show up at all. I've repeatedly told him that he doesn't have to attend and doesn't have to be an assistant eye, given his sleep habits, but he insists that he wants to be with us, wants to be an assistant eye, and I'm happy he insists. He sees much at night that we cannot. He's also a bit chubby, as are all raccoons in this park, given the abundance and variety of food available here. So at this particular meeting, when we heard a desperate clawing at the edge of the rounded rock, we knew it was Angus pulling his rotundness up to us. "Hi, hi," Bertrand said. "Hey, Bertrand," Angus said, utterly out of breath. So far he has refused to have a special inside joke greeting with Bertrand. "Hey, everyone," he says and claps. "Let me catch my breath. Go on without me." We did, and I began by asking everyone for a general update. Yolanda said she'd seen parks people doing some measuring and marking in the woods near out near the biking oval. "Could be a new trail," she said. We all knew this measuring was close to where Angus and the other raccoons lived, but where no humans knew the raccoons lived. As far as the humans knew, there were no raccoons at all in this park. "Ha," we thought, "ha ha, whoo! There are so many raccoons." I worried about the raccoons and where they would go if the humans built a new building where the raccoons secretly lived. Bertrand said he'd seen some new trouble travelers. "About 6 of them," he said. "They look mischievous." We agreed to keep a lookout for them. "Have we all seen the latest in the plaza?" Yolanda asked. The plaza, in the middle of the park, was the most human-dominated part of the park and had been under construction for some time. For as long as anyone could remember, there was a museum there, a big stone building where they kept bones and butterflies, and even a great white crocodile, who the birds had seen through the high windows. They claimed he was alive, but no one had ever seen him move. But now a new second building was being constructed across the plaza from the museum, and none of us could figure out what it could be. "So far, it's a lot of cement," Bertrand said. "All I see every day is more cement. They bring it in those conical trucks that beep when they go backward." For a time, everyone complained together about the trucks that beeped when they went backward, and finally Angus, who had been out of breath, sat up. "I saw something new there today, too," he said. "More people than usual. They were walking slowly around the oval in the middle of the plaza and looking at rectangles full of nonsense." It sounded to everyone like a typically inane and inexplicable thing humans do, so we moved on. We told stories about the ducks, so many stories, all ridiculous and impossible to make funnier. And we worried together about the bison, who were getting older and would never be free. And then we left the top of the rock and went on our respective ways. It was late in the day and not yet night when I realized it was Sunday. Sunday is when the people close off some of the roads inside the park so they can bike and roller skate and walk without cars. And I have to say, these Sundays are a mix of the good and the troubling. The cars I don't miss, but the number of people in the park doubles or triples, and every person is a potential hassle. And hassles, they do come. On these days, I have to watch for the helpers who want to know whose dog I am, the helpers who want to pet me, the helpers who want to check if I have tags, the helpers who think I need their help. Normally, this would be all that might happen in a day, and I would report all this not news to the bison, and that would be that. But while I was watching the skaters, I saw, using my extraordinary vision, something new in the plaza. It was the something Angus had mentioned, but it was more intriguing than he'd implied. Beguiling, even. I ran like rain to the scene. Chapter 4. I normally avoid the plaza. The plaza is a gigantic tiled area in the middle of the park made for humans to walk around on. And thus there are too many humans there, and too many humans in uniforms. And humans in uniforms, park people, police people, are best avoided by free dogs like myself, so I don't get too close to such places. But this day I was wandering near the white glass cathedral of flowers, and then saw some new colors and shapes in the plaza, so I ventured forth, but was also on high alert for the uniformed people and the helping people and all the hassles inherent in highly concentrated humanity. Just as Angus had said, there were new rectangles. Not like the maps and signs all over the park. These were rectangular like normal signs, and they were colored, but they were different from signs. Some seemed to be pictures of rocks and boulders, but of a size that was clearly far too big and simply not right. Some were pictures of streams that were far too wide and long and also the wrong color completely. To me, this was confusing. I got closer. I will be unhumble here and tell you that I am not a dumb dog. I pick up on things. I ascertain things. Sometimes I downright deduce things. But that is why I am the eyes, and why I report to the bison, and why the animals of the park generally take what I say to be reasonable and true. So in this case, I inferred, another thing I do, that this was a kind of show where humans who create pictures put them up to have people walk slowly by them. I don't know why the walking by is important, but it is done very steadily and carefully. So I deduced that the point of the whole thing was for humans who made the pictures to have them showing on little walls, and then hope that other humans walk slowly by. The walking by slowly was not so much stranger than the roller skating, though I must admit it was not as entertaining. But the rectangles I found riveting. Some showed sailboats, and I had seen sailboats in the ocean, but the humans had put the sailboats inside these rectangles, and that was a pretty good trick. Some contained people, and I had seen people too, but they had put them inside these rectangles, and that was a pretty good trick too. Some rectangles were of buildings, and some were even of parks and trees, and all of them were good tricks, and I felt proud of the humans for making these rectangles, given that they are so incompetent at so many things, such as running at light speed, as I do with such ease and flair. Then I saw one that was even more impressive than the others. It was about the size of a garbage can, but seemed to contain another world. There was something like a human child's face, but it was like a human child's face in a hurricane. The sky around the child was dark and slashy, but the child's eyes were serene in this hurricane. And there were birds all around, but they were flying upside down. And there were 1,000 stars, sibling suns, but they were somehow inside the child's body. I know how improbable and wrong this sounds, but it was all there in this picture. And there were so many more things too. It had all kinds of objects I had seen in the world, but in a way that was impossible, but seemed both scary and right and even comforting when inside that rectangle. I couldn't look away. I was sitting on my hind legs at the edge of the forest, about 20 feet from the picture, and found myself in a state of hypnosis. If the point of the pictures was to have people walk slowly by them, this one was very successful. People walked very slowly by, and they said things to each other. One family walked past, and the father covered the eyes of his youngest child and walked by quickly, though the mother lingered for a second longer. Then, finally, the family walked away, and I stayed looking more at the picture, luxuriating in it. No one could see me, because with my dappled coloring, I tend to blend into the woods enough so that no one takes notice of me, unless they are looking for dogs generally, or me specifically. That's why it was surprising when I felt a hand on my hide. I jumped, startled, and when I landed and turned, I saw the terrified face of a small human child. It was the same child whose eyes had been covered by his father just moments before. But the child's eyes were open now, staring at me for a moment before they clenched. His mouth twisted, and he began to cry. His father emerged and asked him what was wrong. The child, in an act of treachery, pointed at me. "That dog bite you?" the father asked, and to his credit, the boy shook his head. Had he said I'd bitten him, the park's people would be relentless in their search for me. Instead, the boy made a few motions as if he were splashing in the water. "He's just a stray," the father said. Now, another man, older, the grandfather I assumed, approached, shooing me like I was some common animal. I figured it was time to go. I don't know why I stayed even that long. When your body tells you to go, it is imperative that you go. That was a close call. Contact with humans that could have gone badly. That night, when he's making his report to the bison are a little concerned. They don't quite understand what he's talking about. Rectangles with children inside, and stars and hurricanes. In fact, Samuel says maybe he ate a little bit too much and was hallucinating. But they do warn him. These rectangles and the new building means that there will be more people. More chances for contact with humans that could go badly. If you want to stay free, stay away from the humans. But the next day, Johannes is drawn to the rectangles once again. And I went past the Cathedral of Flowers and past the roller skaters, past the Cape who was dancing on wheels. And then, as I neared the new building and the rectangles, I slowed down because my favorite rectangle was still there. And I slowed more, and soon I stopped, seized by it. It took me in. The swirl of it, the illogic of it. Why was there a child in those winds? Why were there stars in a daylight sky? And then I noticed the trees in the picture were golden, every part of them golden, as if they'd swallowed the sun. Why? Who would have them this way when in life they're not this way? And in the corner of the rectangle, finally I saw 100 or so grasping human hands. And these hands were all blue, when in life there are no blue hands that I've ever seen. Why would this picture be this way, I wondered. Why? And then I felt the movement of air near my neck. Then I felt a snake on my neck. Then I heard a click. I had been staring at the picture, wondering if maybe such a scene was possible, and would I ever see such a thing myself outside of a rectangle like this, when I felt a tickle around my neck. That was it, just a tickle. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was a huge bug, or an inchworm, or even duck feces, another thing about ducks. And I wanted to get closer to it, to try to understand it, and so I dropped to walking position and moved forward, and then it happened. I felt a tug on my neck. I have never worn a leash, but right away my mind said, leash. I turned around and saw the legs of a man. They were covered by green pants, and the green pants were covered in mud. I craned my head upward and saw that the man was a young man, and he had attached a leash to me. It was a simple blue rope that he'd somehow clicked onto my neck, and he held the rope in a knot around his filthy hand. I looked up at the whole of him. He was not tall, not round. He was thin, angular. He had a pale pink skin and bright blue eyes and the beginnings of a yellow-red beard, and wore kind of a cowboy hat with a string around his chin that held it to his angular head. His vest was black, and over it he wore a long blue coat with sashes dangling to the grass. I'd seen this man before. I couldn't recall when or where, but I knew he'd been identified as a trouble traveler. Those we never forget. "We're going to be a team, Splotchy," he said to me. "That's your new name, by the way." And he tugged on the leash, and oh, it was horrifying. To have this rope telling me where to go, I can't explain the shock. I turned my head against it and felt a sharp pain in my neck, my shoulders. I dug my claws into the soil to slow the turning of the planet, to stop this from happening. "Let's go," he yelled, and he yanked on the leash, and my feet left the ground. He was stronger than he looked. He yanked, and I flew toward him and let out an involuntary yelp that filled me with shame. Then I landed and realized I was now leashed. He turned me away from the light and the pictures and into the darkness of the woods. Wherever he walked, I had to follow. I was now kept. While looking at the picture, thinking of other worlds, I'd lost my freedom in this one. The trouble traveler, whose name is Twisty, takes Johannes and puts him in their van. There are two other trouble travelers there, Rainbow and Pamela. They're about ready to leave the park. They just stole a lot of money, and they've got to get out of there before they get caught. So Johannes is in danger of losing his freedom and becoming a kept dog forever. Never before have I panicked, because my speed is a weapon against all worry. But now, leashed and caged in this moving metal box, I could not run, had few options, was surrounded by humans with their clever hands, and I began to despair. "I always wanted a dog," Twisty said wistfully. He meant me. He wanted a thing, and now that thing was me. I had been a dog, a free dog of limitless propulsive capacity, and with eyes without obstacles, and now I was a thing this man owned. I was the fulfillment of some desire he had. "My parents wouldn't let me get one," he went on, "but now I got one." "Kind of smells, though," Pamela said. She really said this. It is important to me that you know I do not smell. I live outdoors, yes, and partake in unwanted food, yes, and have run through mud and rain and ocean water, but I am clean. The smell was theirs. These people in this vehicle, did I tell you this already? They smelled. Oh, they smelled. I had noticed it right away, but it was more obvious to me when Pamela made this errant remark about me and my own odor, which does not exist. The city was growing larger in the windshield. For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do. Nothing I could do would get me free. The windows were closed. Even if I barked and leapt around and bit at random, nothing would change. And then Twisty turned me on my back and began rubbing my tummy. He did. "Oh, I think he likes it," Pamela said. She was incorrect, but I was smiling. I was smiling because, while on my back looking up, I noticed a window in the roof of the vehicle. There was a window, and across it I saw the passing shape of a great bird. It passed quickly but deliberately, and hope swelled in my heart. I squirmed free and got on my feet again. I had to be ready. And then it happened. A great flurry of wings on the windshield started it off. The wings were almost as wide as the glass and blocked Rainbow's view completely. "Gah!" he said. I don't think that is a word in any language, but that's what he said. He was so surprised, so startled. He stopped the vehicle. Now the wings calmed for a second, and I saw that it was Bertrand. I had assumed it was Bertrand, but now I knew for sure it was Bertrand. He peered through the windshield, looking at me. Finally, his eyes found mine, and he smiled a smile both confident and mischievous. I had never been so proud to have such a magnificent friend. Thump! Came another bird, Yolanda. Oh, she is heavy. I had never before heard the sound of her landing on the front of a van like this, but wow, it was loud. She landed, then spread her wings, so much wider than Bertrand's even, and now there were two great birds on the hood of this vehicle, and the humans inside were screaming. More thumps came, more and more and more, from more and more and more birds. They were everywhere. Every window was darkened by birds, flapping their wings and cracking their beaks against the glass. Even I was unnerved, and these were my friends. Finally, Bertrand gave me the briefest of winks, as if to say, "This madness is for them, my friend, not you." It was a frightening commotion, and was having all the desired effects. The vehicle was stopped, the humans were terrified, and soon I could be free. But how? The windows were still closed, the doors were closed, and the people inside seemed disinclined to open any of these openings. Given the onslaught of wings and beaks outside, Rainbow began driving again. The van lurched, and soon he was moving far faster than before. "Ha ha!" Rainbow yelled, because Bertrand and Yolanda, who had been standing on the hood and flapping their wings, were now thrust upward and behind us. They would regain their wings and catch up momentarily, but we were so close to the city, closer than ever, and once there, everything would change. And then I heard a scream, like I've never heard a scream. It was so high and so loud and so spiraling, I first thought of fire. Were we all on fire? "Hey there," said a voice, and I saw it was Sonia. Yes, I thought. That hole in the floor, of course. While the van had been stopped, a squirrel would have had time to make it through, and had in fact made it through, and this squirrel happened to be Sonia. She said hello to me as she leapt from human to human, scratching and terrifying every one of them. Oh, Lord, she was fast. Have you ever seen a squirrel in a confined space, jumping from person to person with the express purpose of causing havoc? It is something. Never have I seen so much chaos in one small space at one time. She was in Pamela's hair, then Twisty's, then she was all over Rainbow's head and eyes and ears, until he had no choice but to stop the vehicle and throw open the door to escape. "You coming or what?" Sonia asked me, so casually, so brightly, as if she were inviting me to look at a sunset on a Thursday. Rainbow had fled through the open door and was running from the vehicle, his arms flailing around his head in a way I thought very funny and very sad. And yes, I followed Sonia. First, I gave a nice chomp to Twisty's leg to free his hand from my leash. Oh, when that leash went slack, It was glorious, glorious. And then with 2 mighty strides, I was at the steering wheel. And then I leapt through the open door out into the light again. I followed Sonia back to the safety of the park, back to the woods as Bertrand and Yolanda and everyone else thumped their wings and rose above the treetops, cackling and whooping in happy skyward soundings. Wow, that was close. That was an exciting escape, and I'm so glad that Johannes gets to be free. That's the most important thing to him, freedom. In fact, a few days later, as he's enjoying his freedom, which is much more precious now because he almost lost it, he looks at the bison. They're fenced in. They're only in a small area. Why aren't they free? And he decides that's his new mission, to free the bison. To find out how he does it, and if he succeeds, you can read The Eyes and the Impossible by Dave Eggers. Another cool thing about this book is the illustration. It's done by Sean Harris, in which he takes older classic paintings of landscapes, of wilderness, and he puts Johannes in every one of them. This is a classic painting by another artist, but Johannes, the free dog, the fast dog, has been inserted into it. Very cool illustrations. Kind of like the paintings on the plaza. This has been Chapter Book Storytime. I hope you've liked this book and want to pick it up, an award winner and a fun book. Thanks for joining me today for Chapter Book Storytime. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.